Hey, millionaire! Can you imagine waking up on a random day and learning you've somehow made millions of dollars? Wouldn't that be a dream? All of your problems would be solved, and you'd never have to worry about money again. That might sound impossible to you, and it usually is. While most millionaires have worked day and night to reach that status, some people have found ways to go against the grain, whether by sheer luck or pure genius. Here are 10 people who woke up dumb rich. Number 1 will shock you. Number 10. Motilal Prajapati's diamond. Imagine working the same job for years. Now make those decades. By that point, anyone would be sick of what they have to do. Well, Motilal Prajapati's family worked as daily wage laborers at the same digging job for 3 generations. Reportedly, the district of Panna in India is supposed to have diamond reserves of 1.2 million carats. Hoping to cash in on this, the Prajapati family had been leasing diamond mines in the area, and for 3 generations, they found nothing. Debts had kept piling up over the years until the family was drowning in them. Motilal himself owed a debt worth $500,000 Indian rupees. For a laborer, that would have been almost impossible. But luck was finally on their side. In 2018, after a lifetime of back-breaking labor when Motilal was 50, his efforts paid off because he found a diamond of 42.9 carats. The diamond was then sold at an auction for over 2.5 crore in Indian rupees, turning him into an instant millionaire. Motilal said he'll be using his money to support his family by getting his children into a great college, giving his parents a good life, and buying a house for all of them to live in. Now that's a purpose we can all get behind. Diwali that year must have been great. But even though Prajapati's luck only turned years after he hoped, for the next person on this list, success literally came crashing through the roof. Number 9. Joshua Hutagalong's meteorite. Working as a coffin maker in a village in Sumatra, Indonesia, Joshua Hutagalong was minding his own business in August 2020 when he heard a noise from above. Seconds later, there was a loud crash through his house. The object had broken through the metal roofing of Joshua's house and buried itself 6 inches in the ground. Whether it had fallen from the heavens or not, the event was terrifying. Joshua was understandably scared to check out what the unknown object was. Working his nerve up, he dug up the 2-carat rock from his floor. It was still warm at the time, and Joshua realized it might be a meteorite. News traveled throughout Indonesia and the world. Soon, American meteorite enthusiasts were on Joshua's doorstep, hoping to get their hands on the meteorite. A deal was struck, and Joshua's payday earned him millions in Indonesian rupiah. And this isn't all. He found 2 more pieces of the meteorite outside his home as well. Now that's divine intervention. But as far as becoming a millionaire by luck goes, you'll never get enough of the classic lottery winner millionaires. Number 8. Dave Gela, Lawnmower Man. Gela was working at Congrega Foods when he won the $365 million lottery back in 2006 in Nebraska. Back then, this was the biggest Powerball jackpot ever. Now that's a lifestyle change. Or not. Rather than buying diamonds and fancy cars, Gela decided to live the same life he always had lived, let alone a car. He even lived in the same house. He also worked the same job he already did, although he quit after some time. Can't blame him there. According to Gela, money should be spent wisely, and people should plan and work on investments, which probably makes him smarter than 90% of all lottery winners. He only moved out of his old home 5 years after he won the lottery. Today, Dave Gela lives a quiet, happy life. According to his attorney, all he wants to do now is travel and live the most comfortable life possible. For Dave, a big purchase would have been a new sweatshirt, which was probably what led him to be the only lottery winner's success story. Pretty much. See what happens when you're smart with your money and investments? 2 of his coworkers, who had won the jackpot along with him, ended up marrying each other. That's also a smart investment in its own way. Up next, we have another person who advocates being thrifty and thinking about the long run. However, his methods of becoming rich were a little different. Number 7. Marv Doniger's $1 million lawsuit. Sadly, doctors' negligence is not uncommon. Still, in a wild success story, Marvin Doniger managed to turn it into a $1 million payday. When Marvin went to his doctor citing bleeding when urinating, his doctor told him it was a kidney stone and that there was absolutely nothing to worry about. Not looking closely would turn out to be a very bad decision. 6 months later, Marvin had to get his bladder removed. He also had to start walking with a cane and urinating into a bag through his stomach. Understandably, he was angry. Taking the doctor to court, he won a lawsuit for $3.4 million. The circumstances that got him there were unfortunate, but it had paid off, and Doniger was an overnight millionaire. He immediately retired from his job as a management consultant for Fortune 500 companies and bought 2 poodles and a car. If you think these are small purchases for a newly made millionaire, it's because they are. Instead of spending his winnings on dumb, useless items, he started a trust fund for his children because he believes financial security is one of the most important things in the world. According to him, a person can either satisfy his short-term hunger and struggle later, or work on long-term goals and keep money in case a crisis comes. Doniger also published a book in 2009 called A Common Sense Approach to Successful Investing. A bit on the nose, but who else would know about the topic other than Marv? But while Marvin won his fortune through unfortunate events, this next person became a millionaire because of their genius invention. Number 6. Sandy Stein's money-making invention. Sandy Stein worked as an airline stewardess for 35 years before her luck turned around. Now that's a grind. But while being a flight attendant won't ever make anyone any big bucks, Sandy made it work for her. She noticed that women were always losing their keys in their purses. Bringing out her entrepreneurial spirit, Sandy decided to come up with a solution. She called the product Key Finder's Purse. Within 4 months, the company had already reached $1 million in sales. In 8 months, it had sold over 1 million units. And all of this began from a simple idea Stein had when she was 52. She started the company out of necessity after her husband lost his job, but she shows that it's never too late to start the journey and take the leap. Almost overnight, she'd gone from a stewardess struggling to pay rent and raise a 10-year-old son to a CEO who owns a Lexus and goes on world tours. It's been 17 years since Sandy started her journey, and she's still going strong. Can you hit subscribe faster than the guy in the next story became a millionaire? You have about 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Hopefully by subscribing to us, you'll learn just what it takes to get to the same success these people did. Now keep watching. You'll never guess the story that took our number 1 spot. Number 5. Rick Norsinigan, collector. Sometimes making a fortune just means being in the right place at the right time. Just ask Rick Norsinigan. Norsinigan used to be just another local painter in Fresno, California, who worked part-time as a construction worker. His passion for art led him to where he used to buy anything that caught his eye for his collection. Amateur artist or not, Norsinigan hit the jackpot when he managed to find treasure in a flea market of all places. When he bought a box of negatives in a garage sale, he had no idea what he had gotten his hands on. After researching, he began to suspect that the photographer might have been none other than the legendary Ansel Adams, who focused on nature photography. For a bargain of about 32 pounds, or $45, he had bought something worth $200 million. The man who had sold him the photographs was probably fuming, but then again, so was everyone else. After a nasty court battle between Norsinigan and the Ansel Adams Trust that ran for 2 years, Rick finally emerged victorious and walked away with financial freedom for the rest of his life. Now, finding your fortune at a garage sale of all places is absurd enough, but what happens when someone has been sitting on fortune their whole lives and had no idea about it? Number 4. Oscar Stoller's liquid gold. Oscar and Lorraine Stoller were just like any other farming couple. They lived a modest lifestyle in North Dakota. They were very skeptical when they were told there might be liquid gold underneath their farm. Oscar had lived on the farm his whole life, and the two were in their 80s, so the chance of finding fortune right where they lived sounded understandably absurd. Oscar even joked about it when the oil man came to drill there back in 2007. Saying he'd buy a Cadillac convertible and put horns on the front. Oscar never ended up doing that. He still drives his old pickup truck, but now it's by choice. The discovery of not 1, but 2 oil wells on their land meant they could buy anything they wanted for the rest of their lives. But the old pair just liked their stuff too much to replace anything. Still, having millions in your bank account for your family to use is nothing to joke about. These two have their retirement funds covered, with the easiest money ever made. But speaking of easy money, Someone else on this list was saved from a life of much harder work. Number 3. Jonathan Dumel's casino success. Life doesn't always take you where you want to go, but that doesn't mean you can't make a success out of your situation. Montreal resident Jonathan Dumel is a perfect example of this. Dumel had always wanted to become an all-star hockey player in the NHL. Instead, he discovered his talent at poker. He started playing with his friends in high school and would later drop out of Quebec University, where he studied finance, to focus on his professional poker career. His parents probably didn't like that a lot, but they wouldn't be complaining for long. When he was 23, Dumel won $9 million in prize money for winning the main event at the 2010 World Series of Poker in Las Vegas. He was the first Canadian to win the title. He'd also gone on to win multiple other titles at world tournaments, including a cash prize of $3 million. Now that's talent. But speaking of poker, the next entry on this list also made his fortune at a casino. Number 2. Kevin Lewis's double win. If one person becoming a millionaire overnight was absurd enough, what do you say to 2? When Kevin Lewis entered a $1 million draw at the Horseshoe Casino in Cincinnati, Ohio, he never expected to win. So imagine his shock when he heard that his name was being called out. Lewis went up on stage to get his prize money and was presented with one of those big ceremonial checks. And then another man came forward, also claiming to be Kevin Lewis. When the casino investigated, they found out that it was actually the second man who was supposed to be the winner. But instead of taking the prize back from the first guy, the casino decided to give both Kevin Lewis's checks for $1 million, making both instant millionaires. That sure was a good day to be named Kevin Lewis. But it seems all his luck had run out. When the wrong winner was arrested a year later on drug charges, he told the court that his $1 million fortune was all gone and that much was spent paying other people's bills. Spending over $1 million in less than a year is no easy feat. Still, Kevin Lewis proved that maybe having that much money isn't the solution for some winners. We're finally at number 1. Are you ready for it? This one will absolutely shock you. You'll never guess what's coming. Number 1. Sedetto. A quick Google search will reveal that Sedetto is a village in Spain. You might wonder what's happening or why a whole town is on this list. It's because, in Sedetto, everyone's a millionaire. In 2011, the small town struggled to stay on its feet in the face of Spain's economic crisis and severe drought. Every year, the town used to buy tickets to Spain's huge Christmas lottery, El Gorro, the fat one. Still, this time, some people were thinking of skipping out on it and only bought a ticket in loyalty to the Homemakers Association. That loyalty would pay off because when the numbers came in, it turned out that the whole town of 70 families had shared the win of $950 million. Well, all apart from just one. We sure wouldn't want to be that guy. Some residents walked away with a share of millions from the jackpot of all jackpots. Others, the seemingly less fortunate, won a minimum of $100,000. You heard that right, winning $100,000 was unfortunate in this situation, but regardless of the amount anyone won, it sure was the biggest turn of events that no one expected. The next year, the town would go back to buy even more tickets, hoping for a repeat of their luck from 2011. That didn't happen. Lightning doesn't strike the same place twice, after all. Still, even just one win makes them millions of dollars above almost everyone else. Because making a fortune is hard work. Whether it's backbreaking work for years before getting your lucky break because of a genius idea, pure talent, or just sheer dumb luck. But these people are proof that all it takes is one good day before you're set for life. If only you make sure not to spend it all in one place. Do you have any stories about people who became rich overnight? Let us know in the comments, and thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe, like this video, check out this one too. Hey millionaire, have you ever been through a financial hardship and just wished you won the lottery? Winning such a massive amount of money can change anyone's life, allowing you to fulfill all your dreams and projects, but most importantly, recover peace of mind. However, these lucky lottery winners were blessed with great luck that helped them escape the most extreme poverty. In this video, we'll show you 9 homeless people who won the lottery and became rich. But enough talking, let's dive into it. Number 9. Michael Angfors. Getting divorced can't be an easy experience, especially if your divorce comes with a long period of poverty and misery. At 61, Michael Angforce had been homeless for 6 years after losing his business and his wife, leaving him devastated. However, not even poverty and his fall into ruin could stop the spirit of this dreamer of a man. According to an employee of a nearby gas station named Gabby Garcia, Michael was a regular lottery player, even if he didn't win more than $2. Although some people thought he had higher priorities to be spending his money gambling, Michael proved them all wrong, beating all odds and winning an incredible $500,000 thanks to the purchase of one lucky $10 ticket. How would you feel if, after a rough financial patch, you woke up with $500,000 in your bank account? While some people would dream of having money to buy a house or renovate their car, Michael had only one goal in mind: to find his daughter, whom he hadn't seen in more than 20 years. Fortunately, he managed to find her, giving his years of suffering a happy ending. Number 8. Emily Reyes. One story among the luckiest lottery winners stands out above the rest because it happened in the most unlikely place, the infamous Route 66. After finding herself in one of the states with the highest rate of homelessness, mired in a deep addiction to alcohol and drugs, Emily struck a deep chord after landing in prison for stealing to support her habits, an experience that would lead her to make a meaningful change in her life. After being released from a Mario prison, she checked into a homeless women's shelter that allowed her to stay sober and reintegrate into society. However, it wasn't until the day she decided to buy a lottery ticket to get through her 6 months of sobriety that her life changed completely, because on that piece of paper was the ticket that would win her $200,000. Even if she could have used the money to help herself, Emily decided to share her winnings with another woman at the shelter, making her stroke of luck save another life. After, for the first time in her life, the odds turned in her favor. Number 7. Lucky former construction worker. In 2012, in Greenville, South Carolina, a homeless man won $200,000 in a scratch-off lottery game. The winner, who did not want to be identified, said he planned to use the money to support himself and his family. He stated he yelled, jumped up and down, and smiled when he scratched off a $10 ticket that had made him rich. "This will finally put me where I need to be," the man said. The lucky winner used to work in construction, but when things became rough, he moved into a rescue mission and struggled for years to get back on his feet until fortune struck his way. Number 6. Grant Freeman. Grant Freeman decided to move to Las Vegas to give free rein to his desire to gamble money until he found the mythical prize that would help him become a millionaire. Unfortunately, as is often the case with many gamblers who develop an unhealthy addiction, Grant ended up losing all his money and was forced to live on the streets. Despite this, he never gave up, convinced that his luck would change one day forever. After spending his days begging for handouts from tourists and putting every penny he earned into slot machines, his gambling addiction left him even more broke, leading him to hitchhike 40 miles to Nipton, California, the mythical place where the magic would happen. Once in the city, he bought 2 Mega Million lottery tickets, which contained all the luck he had lost in previous years. With only a few pennies, he won $8 on one of them and an incredible $180,000 on the other one. After this big victory, Grant claims to have learned a valuable lesson about gambling after his addiction nearly ended his life. However, his neighbors still occasionally see him buying a lottery ticket or two. If you think these stories have been impressive, then you need to stay until the end, because the following stories are about to get crazier. Number 5. Victor Herrera. As one of the most beautiful places in the United States, Miami is a dream place for many tourists and residents. However, it is hard to believe that a divorced man ended up kicked out of his home in this paradisiacal place during one of the hottest summers. Despite this terrible situation, Victor Herrera managed to move in with his son at his sister's house, where they both settled. Sadly, the small apartment had no air conditioning to cope with the brutal Miami summers. One night, too hot to make it bearable to sleep, Victor went down to the store to buy a bag of ice, but ended up detouring to buy a lottery ticket. Little did Victor know that the short trip to the store would win him an incredible $250,000, which he used to buy a new house. To this day, we have our doubts about whether Victor has decided to buy an air conditioner, because maybe another night, forced to go out and buy more ice, fate will make him the winner of another grand prize. Number 4. Eric from Rahat's Magic. Despite not officially winning the lottery, we can't deny that Eric had one of the greatest strokes of luck a human being can ever experience in life. Eric was a homeless man who became highly popular after appearing on the hit YouTube channel Magic of Rahat, belonging to Rahat Hossein, an American vlogger, prankster, and magician. In a completely selfish gesture, Rahat gifted Eric with a lottery ticket while secretly handing one of the store employees the modest sum of $1,000 so that Eric could experience what it feels like to win the lottery for the first time in his life. Upon learning that he had won the prize, Eric burst into tears and offered to share his winnings with Rahat. The gesture touched the entire YouTube community, leading Rahat's followers to raise a staggering $66,000, which they used to buy Eric a house. Unfortunately, shortly after that, Eric tried to take advantage of the situation, accusing Rahat of stealing his money, so he started blackmailing him into giving him more unless he wanted him to keep talking. As if this wasn't enough, the entire YouTube community turned against Rahat, leading him to go through a severe depression that led him to abandon his channel. A big blow to Eric's luck was also a big blow to Rahat's mental health. Thanks to a YouTube documentary and a video dedicated to debunking the lies, Rahat regained his reputation and is working on his channel again. If you think the end of this story was completely unexpected, keep watching because the following 3 powerful stories will leave you fascinated. Number 3. Laszlo Andraszek. Unlike many other winners, this man managed to win the largest sum of money and become a multi-millionaire. In 2013, Laszlo Andraszek was in extreme debt, despite overcoming his addiction to alcohol. After 7 years of living on the streets, Laszlo decided to leave it all up to luck, entrusting what little money he had left to spend his last coins on a lottery ticket from a train station on his way to Budapest. And fortune smiled back at him. After the lottery announced the winning numbers, Laszlo became the winner of 636 million Hungarian guilders, the equivalent of $2.5 million US, a figure that allowed him to change his life and leave the tough streets behind. Instead of using the money to buy a large country estate or become the owner of a fancy car, Laszlo and his wife didn't forget the one place that took them in, so they donated most of it to the homeless shelter, where he and his wife had been staying for the past few years. After paying off all their debts, money was no longer an issue in their lives, thanks to chance and the belief that someday the law of attraction would give them everything they had been praying for. Number 2. Crystal Nelson. In July 2017, Crystal lived in a friend's truck. She became the winner of the not at all modest sum of $50,000. However, she convinced that that money wouldn't be enough, helped her change her life, a negative thought for a person who had been homeless for 5 months until finding the winning numbers. Instead of spending money on a lot of unnecessary things, Crystal decided to use part of the money to buy a new car, using the remaining amount to help her brother pay for his house so that he would never have to go through the ordeal of homelessness. A gesture completely born out of selfless love, which earned him something more important than money, the affection of his loved ones, who supported him during his hardest moment. And finally, for the number 1 spot. Number 1. Dennis Mahurin. Unlike other winners who had been living on the streets for a few months or years, Dennis Mahurin was homeless for far too long. After spending about 25 years living on the streets since 1978, Mahurin decided to use his money to improve her living conditions, visit his son, and even get dental work done. Although his winnings were not that big, $50,000 helped that allowed him to change his life and helped others along the way. What is even more touching about this case, he never forgot the people who helped him all those years. Instead of spending all his money on expensive things, he decided to give $100 to everyone on the street he lived with.
I'm gonna give them each $100.
She even joked that she would save some money for new people who came over to be her new friends after discovering that she had won the lottery. A clear example that teaches us that there is no better person to express gratitude than the one who has gone through the most extreme situations. However, that's not always the case, like we learned with the dumbest lottery winners in history, who collectively lost billions of dollars after hitting riches. Hey, millionaire! We've all had dreams of making it big one day, of living that lifestyle of the rich and famous. But did you know that a lot of people living the American dream were out on the streets once? That's right, many of the people on our screens living good lives went from rags to riches. Today, we're going over some of the stories of huge celebrities that used to be completely homeless. I'll end the list with one of my favorite actors of all time. Now, let's dive in. Number 15. Halle Berry. Her iconic Catwoman performance will go down in history. But before she landed the role and won the Academy Award, Halle Berry had to see a lot of struggles. Chasing her dream of one day making it onto the big screen, she landed in New York, but she quickly ran out of money. She asked her mother for help, but was turned away. Talk about tough love, right? Berry had to stay in homeless shelters and then in a YMCA until she could afford her place. According to her, this taught her some very important lessons. She got comfortable with being uncomfortable. Looking at how utterly successful her career has been, we can't argue with that. Number 14. Chris Pratt. We've all seen Pratt's transformation from the lovable Andy Dwyer on Parks and Rec to the heartthrob he is in Guardians of the Galaxy and Jurassic World. But that isn't the only transition the actor-hero has gone through in his life. Before making it big, Pratt was sleeping in a rundown, flea-infested van. As soon as he got the chance to be cast in a film named Cursed Part 3, he knew it was his way to get out. With many iconic roles on his resume and a long list of voice acting credits, Pratt has come a long way from that van in Hawaii, where he was working whatever job he could get. He even worked as a stripper once. That's how hard he had to work to survive. Number 13. Shania Twain. She's a country queen, and she's won 5 Grammys. There's nothing Shania Twain hasn't accomplished. But even before she conquered the charts, when she was just Eileen Regina Edwards, Twain was still showing strength far beyond her years. When she was 13, her mother took Shania and her siblings away from an abusive home to live in a homeless shelter in Toronto. The family had to spend the night in a sweltering room with way too many people and not enough beds. She struggled with poverty and domestic violence, and even slept at bus stations when she had to provide for her younger siblings when her parents passed away in a car accident when she was 22. Today, having sold over 100 million records, Twain is one of the best-selling female artists in the country music business. Looks like she's made it, and she's enjoying all the luxuries life has to offer. But with an estimated net worth of $350 million, how could she not? But if there's one person that can teach you nothing is impossible, it's the queen of 90s country herself. Well, she and the Latina legend herself. Number 12. Jennifer Lopez. Hasn't everyone fought with their parents occasionally? Well, Jennifer Lopez took it one step further. When the diva butted heads against her mother, who was stopping her from chasing her dreams to become a dancer, she took matters into her own hands, moving out of her parents' house. She ended up couch surfing. Most of the time, her meals were nothing more than one slice of pizza a day. But her lucky break would come soon. J-Lo ended up landing a job as a dancer in Europe, and it's all been uphill from there. Today, Lopez is one of the most recognized faces on earth. She's a dancer, an actress, a singer, and a designer with an estimated net worth of $400 million. There's no one who doesn't know her. Apart from Mariah Carey, maybe. Number 11. Steve Harvey. If being homeless is bad enough, imagine it's going on for 3 years straight. Back in the 80s, when he was just starting as a comedian, Harvey struggled to find his footing. When a few of his gigs fell through, he was suddenly without a place to live. Unable to earn enough from the odd jobs he worked to buy actual housing, he ended up living in his 1976 Ford Tempo for 3 whole years. His life is a good example of how hard it can be to even just get by. He lived on bologna sandwiches and showered at gas stations and swimming pools to go to small stand-up comedian gigs until he was called to be on Showtime at the Apollo. Today, Harvey has several TV shows, including Family Feud, and has also hosted the Miss Universe pageant for 2 years. Although maybe Columbia isn't too happy about his wrong announcement in 2015. Hey, at least it gave the internet something to laugh at. Speaking of the internet, we have a tech mogul coming up next. Number 10. Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs' big brand and the abundance of iPhones made him a household name across the world. But even if his name is synonymous with money today, he wasn't always rolling in dollar bills. What if we told you that the man who was a co-founder, former chairman, and CEO of Apple used to be broke and homeless? His situation was so bad that he couldn't even afford a dorm room as a student and had to sleep on the floor in his friends' rooms. To get money for food, he'd return Coke bottles and walked 7 miles every Sunday night just because that was the one time he can get a good meal at the Hare Krishna temple. That's not the kind of life anyone should live. Luckily, his story would soon take a turn for the better. When he died in 2011, he was one of the richest men in the world. He did start from the bottom, but made the best of his life. It takes sheer hard work and talent to do that. Number 9. Dr. Phil. He's America's most famous psychologist. He's a talk show host, and he has an annual salary of over $70 million. His house in Beverly Hills is more like a palace than a house, so it's surprising that in the 60s, he was living out on the streets. Guess we shouldn't judge how hard someone has to work, huh? Phil McGraw was born to a very poor traditional American family, and he faced homelessness and poverty when he was just a child. For a very large part of his early life, he was living in a car with his father. Dr. Phil's father interned as a psychologist as well. Eventually, they were able to afford a room at the downtown YMCA for $5 a week. Makes you wonder about that $5 you spent on coffee, huh? McGraw would go on to obtain his degree in psychology and would become a regular on Oprah until he launched his own show. Today, he's worth over $400 million. Number 8. Kelly Clarkson. She's the original American Idol. But if we rewind a little, Kelly Clarkson had come to LA chasing a dream, but tragedy soon turned its head to her. Her apartment was burned down in a fire. She'd given up everything to come to LA. She had no contacts, no money, and nowhere to go. Forced to live in her car or shelters and facing unemployment, Clarkson went through a very difficult time in her life. She didn't have a top to wear to the audition that would be her big break. She had to make one herself. Today, she's the most successful winner of the competition and a household name in America. Kelly Clarkson came back from a house fire that took away everything she had. What's your excuse? Hit the subscribe button before we get to all the celebrities left on the list. You have about 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Hopefully, by subscribing to us, you'll learn that with the right mindset, you can recover from even rock bottom. Now keep watching. Number 7. Daniel Craig. Right, James Bond himself. There's a lot you can learn from the character we've all come to love, but the man behind has just as much to offer. Before he landed his leading role and became one of the most well-known faces in the industry, he used to sleep on park benches in London as a struggling actor. In the early stages of his career, Craig worked minimum wage jobs to support himself. Sometimes, that's what it takes to get your big break. Today, his net worth is estimated at $150 million. He doesn't have to sleep on park benches anymore, unless he wants to. Number 6. Hilary Swank. She's $1 million baby, and if you learn from her example, you might be too. When Hilary Swank's mother separated from her father, she whisked the teenager off from their trailer park to Los Angeles. With $75 to their name and a mobile card, they drove down to California hoping to become a star. The pair lived in their car for a long time, and then they moved into a house a friend owned. According to Hilary, there was no furniture because the friend wanted to sell the house. So they bought an air mattress that they used to inflate every night and leave every morning. Now, she has 2 Academy Awards under her belt, and she's known as one of the most talented actresses of her generation. It's tough to make it in life. Sometimes you'll have to sleep on an air mattress, or as you'll come to see, at a train station. Number 5. Sylvester Stallone. Sylvester Stallone's story is one of the most inspiring tales ever. The actor had worked against all odds to become one of the most commercially successful action movie stars of all time, but he had to struggle for a long time. His Rocky series was rejected repeatedly, and even if they were accepted, he was not allowed to have a lead role. He was evicted from his New York apartment after he failed to pay rent, and he found himself sleeping at a bus station for 3 weeks straight. Things got so bad, he had to sell his dog for $50. Now that hurts. But then, he got his lucky break. Just 1 week later, his script was sold, and he bought his dog back for $3,000. The rest is history. But even if Stallone struggled for years, he remained dedicated. If he had given up his script without the leading role, things might have been easier for him. But then we wouldn't see him on top of the world today either. And here's another example of being dedicated and knowing your worth. Number 4. James Cameron. When Cameron was writing The Terminator, not only was he just barely making ends meet, but he was also without a roof over his head for some time. But despite the struggles, Cameron knew that he wanted to direct his screenplay. and even if production companies hated the idea of him being in charge. Eventually, Cameron would go on to partner with Gail Ann Hurd, who bought the script for $1 and named Cameron the director. See what happens when you stick to your beliefs? Number 3. Heather Mills. Heather Mills' family was always struggling with money. Her father demanded that she and her siblings find food on their own, and they turned to shoplifting as a result. When Mills was a teenager, she ran away from home and had to live in the arches of London Waterloo. She even had to join a traveling circus. Today, she's a former model and ex-wife of former Beatle Paul McCartney. She's come a long way from the streets of London, but that doesn't mean she's forgotten her roots. She phrased it best herself in an interview. According to her, homelessness is what you make of it, and she chose to make a success of it. Are you going to succeed in your life? Number 2. Jewel. When the 90s icon released her debut album, she was an overnight success. She'd go on to sell more platinum albums and sing to sold-out venues. She even has 4 Grammys, but all that is easy to see. If we rewind a little, it wasn't always like this. After she was fired from her job, Jewel was homeless for a year and even almost died in a parking lot. But she kept writing songs and eventually landed a job in a local coffee shop. She'd go on to have one of the most successful debuts in history and have a net worth of over $14 million. Not bad for a girl who used to live out in her VW, huh? But we've finally got to number 1. Are you excited? This one's a shocker. Number 1. Jim Carrey. It's hard to imagine Jim Carrey as anything other than the comedian and actor who's making everyone laugh. But he had one of the roughest upbringings. When his father was fired from his job, his family was forced to move into a single van. Carrey had to do 8-hour shifts in a factory while he was still in school. He even dropped out of school, and his family would drive to different places in Canada, and he'd take up jobs like being a janitor to help his family with the bills. According to Carrey, he's grateful for this time though, because it led him to develop his sense of humor. Leave it to him to make the best out of a bad situation. Doesn't everyone love his sense of humor? These people are the perfect example of just how much you can rise with hard work, dedication, and the will to succeed. That's about it for this one. Which celebrity story inspired you the most? Let us know. Like this video? Check this one out too.
In a world where hidden treasures often remain concealed, one man's life was about to take an unexpected and astonishing turn. Meet Lauren, an ordinary individual with an extraordinary story, a story that began with an unassuming old blanket. Little did he know that this seemingly insignificant possession, one he had stashed away in his closet for years, would soon become the key to unlocking a fortune beyond his wildest dreams. Join us on a remarkable journey for the twists and turns of Lauren's life, a journey that will unveil the astounding true value of a humble blanket, forever altering the course of his destiny. As Lauren stepped through the doors of the unemployment office, he felt a mix of nerves and hope swirling within him. He took a deep breath and braced himself for what lay ahead. Getting financial help wasn't a cakewalk, but he was determined. Inside, things got interesting. Lauren caught their attention by showing off his cool prosthetic leg, a testament to his resilience after a nasty car crash. The meeting that followed was like a puzzle, with lots of forms and questions about his accident. Lauren tackled it all with patience and a never-give-up spirit. Life had thrown Lauren a curveball. For years, he had been a skilled carpenter, creating beautiful stuff with his hands. But one day, life took away his leg in a car crash. Now, he was living in a small house, trying to make ends meet. His trusty carpentry tools were gathering dust, a stark reminder of his past life. Apart from the physical pain, Lauren carried emotional scars from his roller coaster childhood. His sister, with whom he'd always had these wild arguments, seemed to despise him more as they both got older. It was like an unsolved mystery. Why did his only sibling harbor such strong grudges? This question kept him pondering as he faced the challenges of rebuilding his life. When Lauren's sister moved out of the house, she severed all ties with her younger brother. It left Lauren bewildered as he couldn't fathom what he had done to provoke such intense animosity. Back in high school, Lauren had been quite the athlete, a star on the American football squad. At one point, he even contemplated turning his passion into a career. However, he took a different path and signed a contract with a carpentry firm. In the close-knit community, Lauren earned a reputation as a dependable and hardworking man. he made the pivotal decision to move in with his fiancée and her children. It wasn't an easy road, especially with limited finances, but Lauren's determination never wavered. 2 years passed, and he found himself with the family he had always dreamt of. Yet, despite his hardships, Lauren had no one to lean on, and the shadow of his estranged sister loomed over him like a dark cloud. Amidst the turmoil, there was one family member who provided solace: his grandmother. She was a delightful lady with a heart full of love for her grandchildren. Her greatest wish was to see them happy, and she was the one constant source of support in Lauren's life. Lauren's string of good luck was abruptly interrupted. On a dark, rainy evening, he found himself behind the wheel of his vehicle, navigating a road that had seen better days. Despite maintaining a cautious speed, the combination of poor visibility due to the rain and the road's deteriorating condition made it incredibly challenging for him to maintain control. In the blink of an eye, everything changed. Lauren made a turn at an intersection and was met with a blinding light hurtling toward him at an alarming speed. As if that wasn't enough, he also realized that another car was rapidly approaching from behind. In a state of panic, he shouted and honked his horn desperately, doing everything in his power to avert a disastrous collision. Lauren made a valiant effort to swerve and avoid a direct impact with the oncoming car, and fortunately, he succeeded in preventing that catastrophe. However, just when it seemed like the worst had been averted, fate took yet another unexpected turn. His van lost control, flipping over and landing unceremoniously in a deep ditch at the roadside. So, Lauren's day, which had started with a stroke of good luck, swiftly transformed into a series of daunting challenges. The relentless rain, the treacherous road, the blinding lights, and the heart-pounding near-miss with the other vehicle all combined to turn what had once been a fortunate day into an unforeseen and demanding ordeal. As Lauren lay there in the crashed car, he felt an intense pain shooting through his ankle. Confused and hurting, he heard voices and saw bright lights. It was clear his foot had been completely crushed in the accident. For a whole year, Lauren battled with this pain, hoping it would get better, but it didn't. Eventually, there was no other choice. They had to amputate his leg. Imagine having to make that tough decision. After the surgery, Lauren's life took a dramatic turn. With a missing limb and a family to support, he felt like he was in a dark tunnel with no end in sight. And then, the universe seemed to conspire against him. He lost his job, and his savings quickly disappeared. The financial strain cost him his home, and his kids had to go live with their grandparents. It was a really tough time. Just when things seemed their darkest, a true friend stepped in. They offered Lauren and his family a place to stay, a beacon of hope in their time of need. Sometimes, even in the toughest moments, life surprises us with a little bit of kindness. As things took a turn for the worse, Lauren found himself isolated, with only his mother offering him some support. Surprisingly, his sister and other relatives never came to visit, leaving him feeling quite alone during his difficult times. Then, an unexpected call arrived, delivering some shocking news: Lauren's grandmother had passed away. To make matters more complicated, she hadn't left a will behind. Instead, the attorney handling her affairs instructed Lauren to visit her home and take whatever belongings he wanted. Lauren's heart was set on her collection of books, as they held sentimental value to him. However, when he arrived at his grandmother's house, he was met with a disheartening sight. The place had been burglarized, and there was nothing left. In his urgency to understand what had happened, Lauren made a few phone calls and discovered that his own mother and sister had already been there. What stunned even more was that Lauren's sister, who had little interest in reading, had chosen to take the books for herself, even though their grandmother had intended them for Lauren. It was a heart-wrenching realization for Lauren, as he couldn't fathom how his sister could act in such a self-centered manner, especially in a time when support and unity were needed the most. As Lauren was about to leave his grandmother's house, he spotted something unusual on the floor in the corner. It was an old training bag that had seen better days, and beside it lay a dusty, stale blanket with a peculiar striped pattern. It was clear that no one had used it in years. When Lauren brought the old blanket back to his home, his girlfriend wasn't exactly thrilled. She thought it was dirty and unappealing, so she did what anyone would do: she washed it and then hid it away in the closet, where it remained for 7 long years, forgotten and untouched. But destiny had a surprise in store for that old blanket. One day, while Lauren was watching an episode of the Antiques Roadshow on TV, something remarkable happened. His eyes widened as he saw an object on the screen that looked strangely familiar. It was a blanket with the same distinctive pattern as the one he had found in his grandmother's house. Little did he know that this seemingly insignificant blanket was about to weave itself into a surprising and extraordinary tale. Lauren was glued to the TV screen as the expert on the Antiques Roadshow began talking about a blanket that looked strikingly similar to the one he had found in his grandmother's house. His heart raced as the appraiser started estimating the blanket's value. The figure the expert mentioned left Lauren completely stunned. He couldn't move for a moment. With a sense of urgency, Lauren rushed to the closet, hoping against hope that the old blanket he had kept all those years was indeed the valuable one from the show. To his amazement, it was a perfect match. Excitement and disbelief surged through him. He knew he had to share this incredible discovery with his fiancée, so he grabbed the phone and dialed her number. When she picked up, Lauren couldn't contain his excitement as he relayed the news. She, however, was taken aback, finding it hard to believe that a simple old blanket could be worth such a significant amount of money. Her natural skepticism kicked in, and she questioned the unbelievable value of the find. Lauren decided to have a conversation with his mother, who coincidentally lived in their grandma's former house. He explained the incredible discovery of the blanket and the sky-high estimated value he had heard on the Antiques Roadshow. To his surprise, his mother shared a similar opinion with his girlfriend, expressing doubts about the blanket's extraordinary worth. Realizing the need to learn more about the blanket's history, Lauren asked his mother if she could locate a box containing several old family photos. He believed that these pictures might hold valuable clues or background information that could shed light on the significance of the blanket. Using the photographs as a guide, Lauren embarked on a journey of discovery. Among the old family pictures, he stumbled upon a gem, an image of his great-great-grandfather, captured 150 years ago while he was hard at work in a trading station in North Dakota. This revelation sparked a fascinating possibility. The blanket he had found might have originated from that very trading station. If that were the case, its value would likely exceed his mother's modest estimate of $10. Driven by curiosity and the hope of receiving a more accurate appraisal, Lauren decided to take the blanket to a nearby pawn shop. There, he met with a clerk who, unfortunately, didn't seem to grasp the blanket's historical significance. The clerk casually appraised it at a mere $50, which left Lauren feeling unsatisfied and convinced that the blanket held a much deeper and more valuable history. Recognizing that the blanket held a significance far beyond the meager $50 appraisal, Lauren resolved to consult a true expert. His determination led him to embark on an extensive online quest, scouring the internet for a solution. Eventually, his diligent research led him to the doorstep of a family-operated auction house. It was there, within the walls of this reputable establishment, that Lauren believed he would find the knowledgeable assistance he needed to unlock the blanket's hidden worth. Lauren couldn't help but feel he'd stumbled upon the perfect place as he stepped into the bustling auction house. Every inch of the room was crammed with curious and extraordinary antiques, each carrying its own unique value and story. Lauren, though cautiously hopeful, had learned to manage his expectations over time. As Jeff, the auction house appraiser, carefully unfolded and examined the blanket, his eyes widened with intrigue. However, he wasn't quick to jump to conclusions. There was a lingering doubt in his mind. What if the blanket turned out to be a skillful forgery? To get to the bottom of this mystery, Jeff asked Lauren to recount the story of how he had come to possess the blanket. Still uncertain about his own expertise in evaluating such a rare find, Jeff made a wise decision. He sought Lauren's permission to send the blanket to a nearby university for a more thorough examination involving experts who could provide a more definitive answer. Days later, the long-awaited result arrived. Lauren, after enduring a roller coaster of hopes and doubts, yearned for a simple stroke of good luck. All he wanted now was for the blanket to be worth something substantial, to finally catch a break after the trials and tribulations he had faced. Lauren and his girlfriend were filled with anticipation as they made their way to the auction house to meet with Jeff. Upon their arrival, Jeff, the auction house expert, began to weave a compelling narrative about the blanket that had piqued their interest. Jeff's storytelling took them on a captivating journey through time. He explained that the blanket they had in their possession was no ordinary piece of fabric. It was an invaluable historical artifact. Its origins could be traced back to the mid-17th century when the skilled Navajo people began crafting these exquisite wool blankets. What set these blankets apart were their intricate and elaborate designs, which had an irresistible allure. These blankets were so beautiful that they caught the attention of other indigenous tribes and even Spanish explorers, who eagerly sought to acquire them. However, owning one of these blankets came with a hefty price tag, and they were considered a symbol of wealth and prestige. These highly sought-after blankets, known as boss blankets, were more than just textiles. They were tangible pieces of history and art. Jeff's words painted a vivid picture of a time when these blankets were not merely functional but symbols of cultural significance and opulence. As Lauren and his girlfriend heard about this, they were truly amazed. Their blanket, which had seemed ordinary, now felt like a priceless piece of history. It was like a time machine that could take them back to the past, showing the incredible skills of the Navajo people. This discovery was a big moment in their journey, and it made them appreciate the blanket even more. They couldn't help but be in awe of its rich history. It was like holding a precious treasure chest filled with the culture and craftsmanship of a bygone era. Their journey had taken an unexpected twist, revealing that their simple blanket was anything but ordinary. According to the experts, they estimated that the blanket would have been worth around $150 back in 1803. To put that into perspective, it was roughly the price of a house, which cost about $200 at that time. Lauren was astonished to learn about the blanket's historical value. What made Lauren's blanket even more extraordinary was that it belonged to the first phase of Navajo blankets. These first-phase blankets were exceptionally rare and highly sought after. In fact, it was believed that only around 50 of these first-phase blankets still existed anywhere in the world. These blankets were known for their breathtaking beauty and intricate designs, making them true works of art. Lauren was now faced with a big decision. He was considering selling the blanket at an upcoming auction, and Jeff, the expert, offered some valuable advice. Jeff suggested that the blanket should be included in a collection of rare and remarkable items. This collection would showcase the blanket's unique history and significance, making it even more appealing to collectors and enthusiasts. For Lauren, this was an incredible turn of events. The seemingly simple blanket he had stumbled upon had transformed into a priceless piece of history, a testament to the artistry and culture of the Navajo people. The upcoming auction promised to be an exciting opportunity to share this remarkable discovery with the world, and Lauren couldn't wait to see where this new chapter in their journey would lead. Word about the extraordinary blanket seemed to have spread like wildfire, and Lauren received an unexpected call from an unknown caller. The mysterious voice on the other end of the line expressed a keen interest in buying the antique blanket and was willing to offer an astonishing sum of $2 million. The offer left Lauren and his girlfriend utterly astounded. $2 million for a blanket that had once seemed simple and unassuming was beyond their wildest dreams. It was a life-changing opportunity, and they couldn't believe their luck. To ensure that Lauren would indeed bring the blanket to the upcoming auction, Jeff, the expert from the auction house, took a remarkable step. He handed Lauren a staggering sum of $9,000 in cash, acting as a sort of guarantee. This unexpected turn of events added even more intrigue to their journey, and it seemed that the blanket's story was far from over. As Lauren stood in the bustling crowd at the auction, he noticed a familiar face from the Antiques Roadshow in attendance. It seemed that the Navajo blanket had garnered quite a bit of attention, even earning a TV rating, which left the expert visibly impressed. The excitement reached a fever pitch when the auctioneer announced the opening bid for the blanket at a jaw-dropping $15 million. The room buzzed with anticipation as collectors and enthusiasts eagerly raised their cards. First, someone boldly put forth a bid of $20 million. To Lauren's amazement, the bidding war showed no signs of slowing down. The price soared to an astonishing $90 million, and just when it seemed like it couldn't go any higher, the auctioneer pushed for another $1 million bid. At that moment, Lauren couldn't help but tighten his grip, wondering if the blanket could possibly reach such an astronomical price. However, his joy was short-lived, as something unexpected was about to happen, leaving Lauren and the entire auction crowd in disbelief. The auction and the staggering payout made headlines, and the news of Lauren's incredible windfall spread like wildfire. When his mother called to share in the excitement, she also had some unexpected news. She revealed that Lauren's sister was less than thrilled about his newfound fortune. In fact, she believed the money belonged to her and was prepared to take Lauren to court over it. Dismayed by the prospect of a legal battle within the family, Lauren decided to consult his grandmother's lawyer for guidance. To his immense relief, he learned that his sister had no legal grounds for her claim. The money rightfully belonged to him, putting an end to any potential legal dispute. After years of financial hardship and uncertainty, Lauren was finally able to breathe a sigh of relief. The newfound wealth opened up a world of possibilities. He spared no expense, giving his girlfriend the dream wedding she had always wanted. He invested in stocks, acquired 2 homes, and even took his entire family, including the children, on a luxurious cruise to Mexico. Not to forget himself, he indulged in a lifelong dream, purchasing a Harley-Davidson. Lauren's extraordinary journey, from the discovery of a seemingly ordinary blanket to a life-changing windfall, reminds us that life is full of surprises. It's a story of resilience, hope, and the unexpected turns that can lead to unimaginable opportunities. So, as you reflect on Lauren's remarkable adventure, consider this. What might be waiting for you just around the corner? What hidden treasures or unexpected moments could change your life? Embrace the possibilities and seize the opportunities that come your way. Whether it's exploring your passions, investing wisely, or pursuing your dreams, remember that life is an adventure, and you have the power to shape your own story. What extraordinary journey awaits you next? It's time to discover.